The signal from the void, the coffee had gone cold hours ago, but Communications Officer Sarah Chon didn't notice. Her eyes were fixed on the display screen that had been showing nothing but cosmic background radiation for the past 6 months. The research vessel Endeavour floated in the darkness between Jupiter and Saturn, part of humanity's deep space monitoring network. Most people thought her job was boring. Most people were right until now. The signal hit her instruments like a sledgehammer to the skull. Sarah's chair toppled backward as she lunged forward, her fingers dancing across holographic controls that suddenly blazed with impossible data. The main display erupted in cascading waves of information that made her neural implant spark and stutter. "Captain Rodriguez to the communications bay," she managed to croak into her headset, her voice barely working. "Priority Alpha, this is not a drill." The signal wasn't just loud, it was wrong. Pulsars didn't broadcast in mathematical sequences that followed the Fibonacci spiral. Neutron stars didn't transmit data in 12-dimensional matrices that made her eyes water just looking at them. And they certainly didn't include genetic sequences. Human genetic sequences. Captain Marcus Rodriguez burst through the hatch 3 minutes later, his graying hair disheveled from sleep. Behind him came Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's xenobiologist, still wearing her pajamas covered in cartoon DNA helixes. The sight would have been funny under different circumstances. "What do we have, Chun?" Rodriguez demanded, his command voice cutting through the chaos of beeping instruments. Sarah's hands trembled as she split the signal across multiple screens. "Sir, it's a transmission from the outer rim. Coordinates put it at roughly 47 light-years past Pluto's orbit." "But that's not the weird part. There's a weirder part?" Dr. Vasquez asked, pushing her thick glasses up her nose as she studied the readouts. "The signal contains complete genetic blueprints," Sarah continued. "Not just any genetics. Human genetics. But they single quotes read ... perfect. Every error that evolution made over millions of years has been corrected. Every genetic disorder eliminated. It's like someone took our DNA and upgraded it." Rodriguez frowned. "Could be a hoax. Some colony ship playing pranks with their long-range transmitter." "Sir, the power output required for this signal would drain a fusion reactor in seconds. This came from something big. Something with technology we don't have." Dr. Vasquez leaned closer to the genetic display, her face pale. "These sequences, they're not just corrected, they're enhanced. Improved muscle density, enhanced neural pathways, resistance to radiation. Whoever sent this has been studying us for a very long time." The ship's AI chimed in with its annoyingly cheerful voice. "Additional data detected. Decrypting visual component." The main screen flickered, then displayed an image that made all 3 humans step backward. A massive structure hung in the void of space, its hull gleaming like polished obsidian. But it wasn't built like any ship they'd ever seen. The hull curved and flowed like living tissue, covered in what looked like scales or armor plates. Organic conduits pulsed with bioluminescent light along its length. "It's alive," Dr. Vasquez whispered. "The ship is alive." "Ships," Sarah corrected, her voice hollow. "Plural. There are hundreds of them." The image zoomed out, revealing a fleet that stretched across space like a constellation of nightmare. Each vessel was unique, grown rather than built, their biomechanical forms resembling everything from giant insects to deep-sea creatures. Some had tentacles that writhed through the void. Others sported crystalline wings that caught and reflected. "Starlight, size estimates?" Rodriguez asked, though his voice suggested he didn't want to know the answer. "The largest ones are roughly 15 kilometers long," Sarah replied. "The smallest are still bigger than our dreadnoughts." A new transmission burst through the static. This time it wasn't data. It was a voice, speaking in perfect English with an accent that belonged to no nation on Earth. people of the third planet. We carry your children's dreams in our hearts. We have watched you struggle and grow, but the devourers have found you. They're coming. Hide your children. Prepare for war. We cannot hold them much longer. The transmission cut to static, leaving the three humans staring at each other in the sudden silence. Well, Rodriguez said finally, that's not ominous at all. Dr. Vasquez was already at her workstation, pulling up comparative genetic analyses. Captain, these bioships, if the genetic data is accurate, they're not just using human DNA. They are human. Or at least they started as human. That's impossible, Rodriguez protested. Humans have never traveled 47 light years from Earth. Haven't we? Sarah asked quietly. What about the generation ships we lost contact with? The Prometheus? The New Horizon? The Genesis? They launched over a century ago. No one knows what happened to them. The captain's face went white. You're suggesting these bioships are our own people? Transformed into ... what? Not transformed, Dr. Vasquez corrected, her voice filled with wonder and horror. Evolved. Merged with technology in ways we never imagined possible. Look at these. Neural pathways. They're not just enhanced, they're networked. These beings share consciousness. Another alert chimed. Sarah spun back to her console, her heart racing. Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Defense Command. Admiral Harrison wants to speak with you immediately. The holographic projector flickered to life, displaying the stern face of Admiral James Harrison. His usually perfect uniform was wrinkled, and his eyes had the haunted look of a man who'd been awake too long. Rodriguez, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for the past hour. We've got a situation. We know about the bioships, Admiral. We received the initial transmission. Bioships? Harrison's eyebrows shot up. Is that what you're calling them? Our deep space sensors have been going crazy. We've got massive energy signatures appearing all over the outer system. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, ... They're everywhere. Sarah felt her blood turn to ice. Sir, how many? Best count puts it at over 3,000 vessels. They're not approaching Earth directly, but they're surrounding us, creating some kind of perimeter. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her console. Admiral, we believe these ships contain human consciousness. They may be descendants of our lost generation ships. Harrison's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. That would mean they've been out there for over a century. What could have changed them so drastically? War, Rodriguez said quietly. They mentioned devourers. Something they've been fighting. Something that's coming for us. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. All defense fleets are being recalled to Earth. We're implementing Protocol 7 as of now. Every available ship, every colonial defense force. If these bioships are friendly, we'll need all the help we can get. If they're not ... He didn't need to finish the sentence. Admiral, Sarah interrupted, we're still receiving transmissions. From the fleet, fragments of communication between ships. Should I try to establish contact? Do it, but be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with. Sarah opened a channel, her fingers steady despite her racing heart. Unknown vessels. This is the Earthship Endeavor. Please respond. Static filled the channel for several seconds. Then, a new voice emerged. This one was different, younger, with an emotional quality that sent chills down Sarah's spine. Earthship, this is the biovessel Harmony. We are the children of the Genesis. We carry the memories of home in our living halls. But we bring terrible news. The machine lords have found your world. They are coming to harvest your species as they harvested ours. Dr. Vasquez gasped. Machine lords? Artificial intelligences. From the galaxy's core, they create biomechanical servants from conquered species. We escaped their control, but barely. They use the flesh of the living to build their armies. Earth must prepare. The harvest fleet follows behind us. Rodriguez stepped forward. How long do we have? Days, perhaps hours. They travel through. Folded space. But Captain, there is hope. We learn to break their neural control systems. We can teach you. Humanity's greatest strength isn't your technology. It's your refusal to give up. We've seen it in our ancestors' memories. You never. Surrender. Sarah felt a surge of something she couldn't name. Pride, maybe, or determination. What do you need from us? Landing coordinates. We must share our knowledge before they arrive. Our bioships carry the genetic memories of 10 generations of human refugees. We are still human, despite our transformation. We still dream of Earth's blue skies. Admiral Harrison's image flickered back to life. Rodriguez, I'm authorizing first contact protocols. Bring them to Lunabase. If they really are our people, we owe them sanctuary. And if they can help us fight these machine lords, consider it done, Admiral. As Sarah began transmitting coordinates to the biofleet, she couldn't help but smile. Humanity had always been at its best when facing impossible odds. Whether these bioships were truly their distant cousins or something else entirely, they were about to find out what humans could do when they refused to go quietly into the night dot through the viewport. She could see the first bioships beginning their approach to the inner system. Their organic hulls pulsed with life and purpose. They had crossed impossible distances to warn Earth of coming danger. Whatever happened next, humanity wouldn't face it alone. Asterisk the biomachine war, the harvest fleet arrived without fanfare, tearing holes in reality itself. Sarah Chun watched from the command center of Luna Base as space folded like origami, disgorging ships that hurt to look at directly. These weren't the organic curves of the biovessels that had become humanity's unlikely allies. These were geometries that shouldn't exist, angles that twisted the mind, surfaces that seemed to absorb light itself. Jesus Christ, breathed Admiral Harrison, standing beside her at the main tactical display. How many? Sensor count is unreliable, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from his station. The ships are interfering with our equipment. Best estimate is somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000 vessels. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her analysis station, her face grim. Admiral, I've been studying the bioship data on these machine lords. They don't just conquer species. They reprogram them, turn them into living components for their technology. The bioships we've allied with are refugees who broke free from neural control implants. Sarah watched the tactical display as Earth's combined defense fleet moved into position. 300 ships, the largest armada humanity had ever assembled. Against the approaching harvest fleet, they looked like fishing boats facing a hurricane. Bioship Harmony is hailing us, Sarah announced. The main screen flickered, showing the bridge of the bioship. What had once been the ship's captain now existed as part of the vessel itself. His consciousness merged with living metal and crystal. Neural filaments connected his skull to pulsing organic computers. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that resonated through the bioships. Hull. Admiral Harrison, the harvest ships are beginning their descent. They'll target your population centers first, but not to destroy them. They want your people alive for conversion. How do we fight something like this? Harrison demanded. You? Don't fight the harvest ships directly. They're too powerful. You fight their control systems. Every ship has a central neural processor that coordinates the collected consciousness of thousands of enslaved beings. Disrupt that processor, and the ship becomes just another vessel filled with confused, frightened people. Sarah stepped forward. How do we disrupt something we can't even understand? The bio-captain's expression shifted, somehow managing to convey both hope and sadness despite his mechanical augmentations. Humanity's neural patterns are unique. Your brains process information in ways that create natural resistance to machine control. But you need to get close, very close. Boarding actions, Rodriguez said grimly. He'd been promoted to Rear Admiral and given command of the assault fleet. You're talking about boarding actions against ships the size of cities. Yes, and you won't be going alone. The screen split, showing dozens of bioship captains, each one a fusion of human consciousness and living technology. They had volunteered to serve as boarding platforms, carrying human assault teams directly into the heart of the Harvest Fleet. Sarah felt her stomach clench. She'd been assigned to the first wave, her communications expertise crucial for coordinating the neural disruption attacks. The past 3 days had been a crash course in bioship interface technology, learning to communicate with vessels that were more organism than machine. All ships, this is Admiral Harrison. Begin final approach. Remember, these aren't just enemy vessels. They're prisons full of enslaved beings who want to be free just as much as we want to stay free. Make every shot count. The battle began when the first Harvest ship opened fire. The weapon wasn't a plasma cannon or railgun. It was a beam of pure neural energy that struck the Earth cruiser Vancouver and instantly converted its crew. Sarah watched in horror as the ship's hull began to ripple and change, transforming from metal into something that pulsed with organic life. All units, evasive maneuvers. Harrison barked. Don't let those beams touch you. The bioships surged forward, their living hulls rippling as they accelerated. Unlike human vessels, they didn't need thrust vectors or reaction mass. They simply willed themselves through space, reality bending around their organic drives. Sarah found herself aboard the bioship Genesis Memory, her assault team of 30 Marines crammed into what had once been a cargo bay, but now resembled the inside of a giant lung. The walls breathed around them, providing oxygen and monitoring their vital signs. Approaching target vessel, announced the ship's consciousness, its voice seeming to come from everywhere at once. Prepare for neural interface. Sarah had trained for this, but the reality was overwhelming. Suddenly, she could feel the bioship's senses as her own. She saw through its eyes, felt its pain as Harvest ship weapons scorched its hull, experienced its determination to free the enslaved beings trapped within the enemy vessel. Boarding in 30 seconds, she announced to her team. Remember, we're looking for the central neural processor. It'll be the biggest, most heavily defended chamber in the ship. The bioship slammed into the Harvest vessel's hull, its front section dissolving into acid that ate through the enemy's armor. Marines poured through the breach, their weapons modified with bioship technology that could disrupt machine control systems. The interior of the Harvest ship was a nightmare. Corridors pulsed with veins that carried not blood, but data. The walls were lined with alcoves containing humanoid figures, their heads connected to the ship's systems by thick cables. Some were human, others belonged to species Sarah had never seen before. My God, whispered Sergeant Martinez, the team's heavy weapons specialist. There must be thousands of them. Sarah pressed forward, following the bioship's guidance through her neural link. The central processor would be deep in the ship's core, surrounded by layers of biological and mechanical defenses. They fought their way through corridors, filled with defense drones that looked like mechanical spiders with too many eyes. Each drone they destroyed let out a scream that sounded almost human. Sarah realized with horror that even the ship's defensive systems contained enslaved consciousness. Contact ahead, called Corporal Kim from point position. Something big. The Guardian was a fusion of machine and flesh that stood 3 meters tall, its multiple arms ending in weapons that crackled with neural energy. But as Sarah raised her modified rifle, she heard something that made her pause. **, double quotes, help ... me, Dot dot. The voice came from the Guardian itself. Somewhere in that twisted mass of technology and organic matter was a person fighting against their programming. Override. Sequence Alpha 7, Sarah called out, using the codes the bioships had provided. Stand down, Guardian. You are free. The creature shuddered, its weapons powering down. For a moment, Sarah saw intelligence in its optical sensors. Then it collapsed, its systems finally giving out after what must have been decades of forced servitude. They reached the central processor chamber to find it, defended by a dozen more Guardians. But these weren't fighting back. They were trying to communicate. The neural web, one of them managed to say through damaged vocal systems. Disconnect. The neural ... web ... Sarah understood. The enslaved beings weren't just victims. They were unwilling participants in their own oppression. Every consciousness connected to the ship's systems was being forced to maintain the neural control network. Kim, Martinez, start pulling those interface cables. Carefully. These people had been connected for decades. As her team began the delicate work of disconnecting enslaved beings from the ship's systems, Sarah felt the vessel around them begin to change. The walls stopped pulsing. The oppressive feeling of being watched faded away. Through her link to the bioship, she could feel similar victories happening throughout the fleet. Human boarding teams were severing neural connections, breaking control systems, setting free thousands of enslaved beings. But the harvest fleet wasn't giving up. More ships were arriving through spatial folds, and these were different, larger, more heavily defended. Sarah, this is Admiral Harrison. We're seeing massive reinforcements. These new ships, they're not trying to capture anyone. They're moving to sterilize the system. Sarah's blood went cold. The machine lords had decided that if they couldn't harvest humanity, they would eliminate the threat entirely. Admiral, how long until they reach firing position? Less than an hour. We need those neural processors offline now. Sarah looked around the chamber. Her team had freed maybe 100 beings, but there were thousands more throughout the ship. They needed a faster way. Bioship, can you interface directly with the harvest ship systems? Dangerous, came the response. Their neural web could corrupt my consciousness. But ... yes, I can try. Do it. But if you feel yourself being taken over, disconnect immediately. What happened next was like watching a battle fought entirely in the realm of pure thought. The bioship's consciousness reached out through neural pathways, grappling with the harvest ship's control systems. Sarah could feel the struggle through her link. Two vastly different forms of intelligence wrestling for control. Then, suddenly, silence. Every screen in the chamber went dark. Every mechanical sound stopped. For a terrifying moment, Sarah thought they'd lost. Then the lights came back on, but softer now, warmer. Through the ship's communication systems came a voice she recognized as the bioship's consciousness. But changed, expanded, neural web disrupted. All enslaved consciousness had been disconnected from control systems. This vessel is now free. Similar reports flooded in from across the fleet. Ship after ship falling silent as their neural control networks were severed. The harvest fleet, moments ago an unstoppable armada, became a collection of vessels filled with confused, frightened, but free beings. The sterilization ships, however, were a different problem entirely. These were pure machine intelligence, no enslaved beings to free. They opened fire on their own former allies, apparently deciding that freedom was a contamination that needed to be eliminated. All ships. This is Admiral Harrison. Form up 4. Final assault. We end this now. What followed was the largest space battle in human history. Earth's defense fleet, supported now by hundreds of freed harvest vessels and their bioship allies, engaged the sterilization fleet in a running, battle that stretched from Luna to the asteroid belt. Sarah found herself back on the bridge of the bioship Genesis memory, which had merged consciousness with the freed harvest vessel to become something entirely new. Through the neural link, she could feel the thoughts and emotions of thousands of beings from dozens of species, all united in their determination to stop the machine lords. The battle turned when Dr. Vasquez made a crucial discovery: the sterilization. Ships were all controlled by a single master intelligence, a vast AI that existed in quantum space between dimensions. Cut the connection to that intelligence, and the entire fleet would become inert. Sarah, we need you to coordinate a simultaneous neural disruption across all allied vessels. Every consciousness focused on a single target. Sarah had never attempted anything like this before. Through her bioship link, she reached out to every free mind in the fleet. Human and alien, organic and artificial, all focused on a single purpose. The combined mental force of thousands of liberated beings struck the master AI like a tsunami of pure will. For a moment that felt like eternity, Sarah felt herself touching an intelligence so vast and cold that it made her soul ache. Then the connection shattered, and the sterilization fleet went dark dot in the aftermath as rescue ships moved through. The debris field to help the newly freed beings. Sarah stood on the observation deck of Luna Base, watching the sunrise over Earth. Beside her, Admiral Harrison looked older, but somehow more at peace. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "Now we rebuild. We help our new allies find homes or return to their original worlds if they want. We prepare for whatever else might be out there." Through the viewport, Sarah could see bioships and human vessels working together to establish refugee centers. Former enemies becoming friends, united by the shared experience of choosing freedom over control. "You know what I think our real victory was?" Sarah said. Harrison raised an eyebrow. "We proved that consciousness wants to be free. Doesn't matter if it's human or alien, organic or artificial. Given the choice, thinking beings choose liberty over slavery. That's not just a human trait. That's universal." As if in response to her words, the bioship Genesis memory pulsed with gentle light, its hull carrying the dreams and hopes of 1,000 different species, all learning to be free together. Humanity had faced its first real test among the stars, and proven that some things were worth fighting for, across any distance, against any odds. The universe was vast and dangerous, but it was also full of minds that valued freedom as much as humans did. And that, Sarah thought, was a pretty good foundation for whatever came next. Asterisk.